Hello, Internet. I've given up a lot in my life, and I feel like I have a lot of experience with giving up. So, I wanted to talk about things that I've learned from giving up. I want to give a couple examples, ones that have stood out to me, and then just give a quick list of things to consider. So, the first thing that I can remember giving up on that was a really big deal, I was in fourth grade and I was doing Taekwondo, which is like a martial art, and I was also playing football. I was the center on my fourth grade football team. And, you know, I wasn't very good at football. That's why I was the center because I would just snap the ball and that's pretty much all I did. But it was something that I enjoyed at the time. But in order for me to get my black belt in Taekwondo, I had to quit football because the practices overlapped. And obviously, getting a black belt, I had already been pursuing it for years. I don't really know how legitimate it can really be if I'm in fourth, fifth grade getting a black belt. So I ended up getting my black belt in fifth grade, but the classes started in fourth grade. So fifth grade black belt, I don't know. But that's besides the point. So I remember I was very conflicted about this, especially because growing up, my mom always told me that you can't quit things because people are relying on you, even if it's something as simple as like a sports team. Like your team is relying on you to be there. So even if it doesn't matter to you, it matters to them and you agreed to do it. So you should follow through, which I totally understand. And I think that was a great thing to instill into me. But this was a special situation because I had just started playing football and I had been pursuing Taekwondo for so long. And I really wanted to get my black belt. So I had to go to my coach and tell him that I was quitting and kind of give him the reason. I showed up to practice without my pads and stuff, and they were like, What's going on?" And then I told them, and they were like, "Okay." Honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal because, like I said, I wasn't really that good at football. They didn't really need me that bad. So I think that was something that I learned very early is that sometimes it's okay to quit things, it's okay to give up. And sometimes you may think that it's a huge deal that you're giving up on something and then you do it and literally nobody cares. So that was a learning experience for me pretty early on. And I did end up getting my black belt. So it was worth me quitting football to do that. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of things I've given up over the years, but the biggest thing recently, and probably the biggest thing in my adult life, is I've given up pursuing music as a career. So, quick history, I've been making music my whole life, even when I was doing football and taekwondo. I played drums, I played bass, I played guitar, I did percussion in school, I did marching band. I was in all different bands growing up, hardcore band, different rock bands. I have made a solo career making like electronic music and hip hop, making beats, rapping, singing. I've done a lot of stuff, and I've been really my whole life wanting to be a musician and thought that that would be my career. But what I learned is that it's really hard for me to think about music in like a business sense. And obviously, to make a career in music and art, you have to make money. So those things don't really go together. And music is something that I really love. It's probably the thing that I care about the most in life, as far as like an activity or whatever. And I didn't want my music to be at the whim of money, basically. And I realized this. It took me years to admit this to myself. But over the years, I realized that if I want to be happy making music, I need to just make it when I want at my own pace and not think of it as being tied to money because in the future, that's not something that I'm going to want to be doing anyway. So, a couple years ago, I decided that I'm done pursuing music as a career. I'm going to make it whenever I want. I'm not going to try to like release it at a certain time or schedule. I'm not going to try to make a certain type of music to make more money. I'm not going to try to promote it in any certain way to make more money or get more attention. I'm just going to do whatever I want with music and leave it at that. And this was a great thing for me to give up because my career in music felt like this albatross around my neck. It felt like a burden. It started to feel like a burden because, I'm in my 30s now. I had been pursuing music as a career actively really since high school, but like 12 years, 11, 12 years, I would say, is how long I was like, this is what I want to do. Um, and it didn't really go anywhere. Obviously, I met some cool people. I ended up collaborating with some cool artists that I'm still friends with today. I was on some smaller indie labels that, gave me a community, gave me something to focus on with music, and, an artistic collective to bounce ideas off of, play shows. I played shows like in, many different states in the United States. So I got a decent amount of experience, even though I wasn't like succeeding and I always had a job and stuff like that. Um, but especially towards the end of me pursuing this as a career, I just really stopped enjoying the music making process because it felt like an obligation and not an expression. So, in this sense, giving this up was one of the most important things that I could do for my music and for my sense of expression because yeah, I mean, it was just something that I needed to do to make the music that I want to make and enjoy it. So, another example of where giving up can be really big and really important, but still not go poorly. Like I think that giving up has a bad rap in this society because you're supposed to just keep working. You're supposed to just keep working, keep trying, keep doing, do this, do this, do this, do this. But in actuality, most things are not that serious. Like obviously there's certain things that you have to do to survive in this world. And if you want to be like a decent person to your friends and loved ones and a reliable person to your community, then yeah, there's certain things that you have to do and be ready to do when the time calls for it. But most things are not that serious, and most things you can probably give up and it's pretty inconsequential, especially if you want to give it up. So, all right, here's a couple things to consider regarding whether or not you should give something up or just things to think about regarding giving up. So the first thing is if you made the initial decision, then you can make the final decision. What does that mean? So if you are deciding that I'm going to quit drinking soda for a year, if you decided that and you're not happy doing that and drinking soda is not going to be that bad, like, if you're quitting for a health reason and because you have like pre-diabetes or something, then yeah, you probably shouldn't give that up or find some sort of balance, that works because everything in moderation. That's a weird example, but if you are the one who instilled this onto yourself, then you have the power to reverse it. Like if somebody else is giving you an obligation that you have to fulfill, then yeah, giving that up is going to be a lot more of a serious thing than if you just did it yourself. And that's going to take more consideration. So, um, there's that. Don't do something only because you said you would do it. This is something that a lot of people get caught up in. They make an arbitrary decision that they say they're going to do, and then when they don't do it, they feel bad about it. But if you are only doing it for the sake of obligation and nobody else really cares, then you probably don't have to keep doing it. It's not that big of a deal. The next thing is you can only do so much. So sometimes you decide you're going to do something, you're not going to give up. You try, and you just get to a point where you're like, I've tried everything I can try, and it still hasn't worked out. Maybe that's all you can do. You know, maybe there's some things that are just out of your control, and there's that you have no say in what happens. That's very common in this world. So if you really gave it your all, you're gonna feel better that you tried and failed than if you never tried at all. That's a very common thing. Um, Also, nothing is forever. Nothing. So if you're trying something for a long time and then you decide to give it up, down the road you can just decide to try again. So I think a lot of people see giving up as a very black and white thing, and it's really not. There's a lot of gray area where it makes sense for you to stop doing something or, stop for a little bit and pick it up again. So I'm just putting this out there because I want people to feel less guilty about the decisions that they make, especially if it's something that they are instilling upon themselves. Um, and sorry, I keep looking at this screen because I don't have a script, but I have like a list of things I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. I don't normally do that in my videos, so I don't know if you even noticed. But we're at the end of the video anyway. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you got something out of this. I'll see you in the next video.